I'm going to show you how to use something called a depth map to create a 3D mesh. And you use depth maps to create things that have some kind of contour, some kind of shapes to them. They can be sort of standard looking shapes, or you can create whole landscapes with mountains and valleys. So to do this work, we're going to do things from scratch. So let's open up Photoshop and create a new document. Go File, New. I'm going to go with this one that I've been using all along here, the 1200 by 1200 thing with a transparent background. You can do whatever you want, but it's kind of helpful to have a transparent background to begin with at any rate. And now I want to create a depth map. Now a depth map is something that has some variations or gradations in grayscale. Let me just start off by making something that's pure gray. So I'm going to fill this with gray. I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to choose 50% gray and click OK. Now if I take this and make a mesh from a depth map and have it be a plane, I can choose a plane, two-sided plane, a cylinder, or a sphere. We'll go with a standard plane like that. Click Create. It's going to be flat because anything that's 50% gray does not come toward us or go away from us. It stays flat. But if I make something darker, it'll go away. It'll be deep. And something lighter, it'll come toward us in a contour. If I just click on this, I'll show you it is flat, 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 like a 3D postcard. Okay, let's go back a little bit to New again. Now I want to use a gradient here instead. I'm going to go back to the default colors. We're pressing D for the default colors. And it gives us a gradient here of black to white from the foreground to the background, which is what we want here. I want to create a gradient that goes from here to here using a standard gradient like that. So I'm going to go like so. And what do we have here? We have black going to white. So we're going to create this kind of sloped thing. This goes down to a deep hole, and this goes up to a high peak. So I'm going to go to 3D over here, and click on Mesh from Depth Map Plane, and click Create. And that creates this thing that goes up at an angle. I click on it, you'll see that it's built at an angle like that. Not that exciting, but you can see how that works. Let me go back a notch here. Click on New again. This time we'll click on Gradient again, but this time we'll take a different approach. I'm going to use this diamond gradient here. I'm going to start in the middle and go beyond the edge, because if I don't go beyond the edge, I get a white border. So go down here. There you go. Still kind of a white border, but I think we're okay. Now what's going to happen here? Where it's black, you're going to have a deep hole, a deep canyon. And where it's white, you're going to have a raised area. So it's going to be kind of a pyramid when we're done here. So go to 3D, click on Create the Plane here. There you go. Click on that. You have sort of this little pyramid there. You can see it's kind of rough. That's because we're working in 8-bit color here, only 256 shades of gray. If we work in a higher bit level, then we're going to get a smoother side. So let me go back to the beginning again here. Click on New. I'm going to change this image mode to 16-bit. So I go to Image, Mode, go down here to 16 bits per channel. Now I'm going to add that same gradient. So back to gradient. Click on this guy. Try to get sort of beyond the edge here like this. Turn this guy into that little pyramid again. And now you'll see that the sides are much smoother. We're working inside 16-bit here. Rotate that around a little bit. There we go. So that's how that works. You can work in 8-bit or 16-bit. Just know that if you work in 16-bit, it'll be smoother when you finish it. All right, let's go back to history again and start over again. I'll stay in 8-bit now. I want to create a contour. I want to create a landscape that has hills and valleys. And the easiest way to do that is to use the clouds filter. So I have this blank slate here. Go to Filter, and go down to Render where the clouds are, and click on Clouds. And Clouds takes the colors that are here and then makes these clouds. It's a random fractal noise thing. It'll look different every single time you use it. So you see you have black and white. We're going to have a very dramatic contoured landscape here. Go to 3D, click on Create. Wham, look at that. Click on that to make it active and tilt it up. In some ways, it's kind of like a two-dimensional thing in that it has no thickness. There's not like a big chunk of earth down below it. It just has this one thin thing that just goes up and down in these peaks and valleys. But look how contoured it is like that. Pretty extreme contours. If we want to reduce the extremities a bit, we go down here to the layer. This is the only place that you can find the planar depth map here. You won't find it inside the properties. If I click on layer here, you notice that there is nothing here that says depth map. Find the depth map only down here. So you double click on that to open it up. There it is again. We've seen this guy before. But let's reduce the contrast. That's pretty easy to do. Just add an adjustment layer. We'll add levels. Could add curves too, but let's just add levels here. Pull this down so I can see it all. I want to narrow the output here to kind of reduce the contrast. So we'll bring in the blacks and make the blacks gray instead of black, and bring in the whites and make them sort of light gray instead of bright white. And that reduces the contrast quite a bit. We'll save this now by just clicking on the X to close it, and it'll say, do you want to save it? Yep, I want to save it. We'll go back, and our mountains will shift. No longer are they that dramatic looking thing. They're now more subtle, I guess would be the right way to describe it. Now, probably you wouldn't use the mountains just floating in space like this. You'd probably zoom in a bit, or scale them up. So let's scale them up a bit like that. You can always scale them sideways too, like so. Click outside here and drag them like so. Now, let's say I want to add some color here. Let me just show you how to do that. We're going to talk about working with materials in other lessons, but I do want to just show you how to do something with these guys right now, because I want to point out there's a problem with opacity here. There's an automatic thing called an opacity map made when you use this depth map. So let me show you what happens. So I'm going to go click on the layer to turn on its properties. I'm going to go over to diffuse, and I want to add a nice skin to this to change the whole nature of this by adding some color to it. So I open up this little drop down thing here and say replace the texture. Let's go get Mars, for example. Double click on that. And now what happens is that Mars tries to show up here, but because there's an opacity map applied to this too, and the opacity map is black, white, and gray, and wherever it's black disappears. Let me show you how that works. Here's the opacity map here, and the opacity map equals what we just added. That's the opacity map. So I'm going to close that down. I just want to turn off the opacity map, so I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to remove the texture entirely. And now we can see our little mountains there. The white stuff there on the edge is the snow from that Martian landscape. We can deal with that pretty easily. I'll go back to that diffuse there and edit the texture. This guy's a background layer, so I'm going to double click on it and make it a standard layer. Now I want to go Control or Command T, select it like that, and we're going to just expand it like this to get rid of the snow. And accept that by pressing the numeric pad Enter key. And then we'll close this down. It'll say, do you want to save it? Yep. And now that'll take care of the snow there. And I suppose we really should finish this off. I guess I'm taking this beyond using a depth map to make a mesh, but let me just go beyond that one step and add a new layer down here. Put that layer down below the current layer. Let's add some clouds to the scene. So I'm going to go over here and make the clouds red, because we're on Mars, right? This little Martian red over here. That'll be the foreground color, and the background color will make that kind of Martian orange, I suppose. Like that. There you go. And now we make clouds for this guy. So go Filter, Render, Clouds. And now we have this Martian landscape. So there you go. That's how you use a depth map to make a 3D mesh.